Perfect, I told my sister-in-law Rebecca when she announced that 30 members of her family were coming to stay at my lakeside estate for an entire month. I'm leaving tomorrow. You can handle everything yourself. I'm not your personal staff. Her jaw dropped as the blood drained from her face. But what she didn't know was that the real surprise was just beginning. My name is Dorothy. I am 62 years old, and for the last 5 years, I have been treated like an indentured servant in my own home by a woman who married into my family and decided I existed solely to make her life comfortable. It all started when my younger brother, Thomas, married that woman. From the very first day Rebecca entered our lives, she decided I was her personal assistant, cook, housekeeper, and event coordinator, all rolled into one convenient package that required no salary, no gratitude, and certainly no respect. Dorothy, I need you to prepare lunch for my book club. Dorothy, the guest bathroom needs deep cleaning before my mother visits. Dorothy, I'm having a dinner party for 12 tonight. Nothing too fancy, just your famous beef Wellington, that raspberry soufflé, and maybe your homemade dinner rolls. And I, like an absolute fool, always complied. I told myself it was how I kept the family together, how I showed my love for my brother, how I stayed connected to the only family I had left after our parents died. But I had finally reached my breaking point. That cold Tuesday in December, Rebecca swept into my kitchen in my house, without knocking, as she had done hundreds of times before. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere sweater that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage payment, paired with designer jeans and boots that clicked against my hardwood floors like a countdown to my explosion. Her highlighted hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her manicured nails gleaming as she placed her ridiculously expensive designer purse on my kitchen counter. The counter I had scrubbed the night before after she'd hosted an impromptu wine tasting that left my kitchen looking like a war zone. "Dorothy," she called out in that sing-song voice that made my teeth clench, "I have the most wonderful news." I was elbow-deep in bread dough, preparing the artisan loaves she'd requested for her holiday gift baskets she would present to her friends as if she'd made everything herself, naturally. I didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge her entrance, just kept kneading the dough with more force than was strictly necessary. "Dorothy, are you listening?" She moved closer, invading my space as she always did when she wanted something significant. "My entire family is coming for Christmas. Well, not just Christmas. They're coming for the whole month of December. Isn't that exciting?" I finally turned to face her, my flour-covered hands frozen mid-knead. "The whole month?" "Yes." She clapped her hands together like an excited child, completely oblivious to my tone. My parents, my 3 sisters and their husbands, my brother and his wife, all 17 of my nieces and nephews, my Aunt Carol, my Uncle Raymond and his new girlfriend, my cousins from Seattle. Oh, and my grandmother is finally well enough to travel, so she's coming too with her caretaker. That's 30 people total. 30 people, for an entire month. In my house. She continued, pulling out her phone to show me a color-coded spreadsheet she'd created. "I've already planned everything. Christmas Eve dinner for 30, Christmas Day brunch, a New Year's Eve party, a welcome dinner, a farewell brunch. Oh, and my sister Melissa wants to have her 40th birthday party here on the 27th. I told her it would be perfect." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, waiting for her to acknowledge the insanity of what she was proposing, but she just smiled, that bright, expectant smile, her eyes gleaming with excitement about her perfectly planned holiday. "And naturally," she continued, "you'll handle all the preparations, the menu planning, the shopping, the cooking, the decorating. You're so good at all of that. I've already told everyone about your amazing cooking. My mother is especially excited to try your legendary crown roast." She scrolled through her phone, completely absorbed in her own planning. "We'll need the guest rooms prepared, fresh linens for everyone, extra towels. Oh, and can you make sure to put fresh flowers in each room? Nothing too expensive, but something cheerful. And we'll need to childproof the downstairs because my nephew Connor gets into everything. I watched her mouth move, forming words that assumed my complete compliance, my total willingness to sacrifice an entire month of my life to her family reunion fantasy. A family reunion that she had planned without asking me, in my house, expecting me to do all the work. The children can share rooms, she continued, oblivious to my silence. That'll be fun for them, like a month-long sleepover. And Thomas said we can use your garage for storage if we need extra space for luggage. Everyone's bringing so much. It's like a migration. She laughed at her own joke. Then she looked at me directly, her smile unwavering. So we'll need 3 turkeys for Christmas dinner at least, and that honey-glazed ham you make. Oh, and your scalloped potatoes. Everyone will expect those. And pies. We'll need at least 8 different pies. My family takes dessert very seriously. She paused, finally noticing my silence. Dorothy, you look pale. Are you feeling all right? Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet final sound of a rope that has been stretched too far for too long. I wiped my flour-covered hands on my apron, took a deep breath, and looked her directly in her perfectly made-up eyes. Perfect. She blinked. What? Perfect, I repeated, my voice calm and measured. It will be a perfect Christmas for you and your 30 family members, because I won't be here. The confusion on her face was almost comical. Her smile faltered, her head tilted slightly to the side like a confused puppy. What do you mean you won't be here? Dorothy, this isn't funny. I'm not joking, Rebecca. I'm going on vacation. You and Thomas can handle the cooking, cleaning, decorating, and entertaining. I am not your employee. I am not your servant. I am not your personal chef. I'm done. The color drained from her face so quickly, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But I've already invited everyone, she stammered, her voice rising an octave. They've booked flights. My parents are coming from Florida. My grandmother is so excited. Thomas said it would be fine. Thomas said what would be fine, I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. That we could have everyone here. He said you'd be happy to host. I felt rage bubble up in my chest, hot and fierce. My own brother had volunteered my house, my time, my labor, without even consulting me. Just as he had done for the past 5 years, allowing his wife to treat me like hired help while he played the role of generous host in my home. Rebecca, I said, removing my apron and folding it with deliberate care. Let me be very clear. I am leaving tomorrow morning for a month-long vacation. What you do about your family gathering is not my concern. But I suggest you learn very quickly how to cook a turkey, because I won't be here to do it for you. Her mouth opened and closed several times, but no sound came out. She looked like a fish gasping for air, her perfect composure completely shattered. This is insane, she finally managed to shout. You can't just abandon us like this. What am I supposed to tell my family? Tell them the truth, I suggested, picking up my car keys from the counter. Tell them you planned an elaborate month-long gathering without consulting the person whose house you were planning to use as a hotel and whose labor you were planning to exploit. Tell them you took for granted that a 62-year-old woman would be thrilled to cook and clean for 30 people for an entire month without pay, gratitude, or even basic courtesy. That's not fair, she protested, her voice cracking. We've always been grateful. We appreciate everything you do. Really? I turned to face her fully. When was the last time you thanked me for anything? When was the last time you offered to pay for groceries? When was the last time you asked if I was available before volunteering my house and my services? She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out because she knew I was right. In 5 years, she had never once thanked me genuinely, never once offered to reimburse me for the thousands of dollars I'd spent on her dinner parties, her book clubs, her spontaneous gatherings. Never once considered that I might have my own life, my own plans, my own limits. "I thought you liked helping," she whispered, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "I thought it made you feel needed. You never said anything." "I never said anything because I was trying to keep this family together," I replied. "But I've realized something, Rebecca. A family that only values you when you're useful isn't really a family at all." I walked past her toward the stairs, leaving her standing alone in my kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of my latest unpaid labor. The bread dough, the polished counters, the fresh flowers in the vase she'd requested for her own home, but had me arrange in mine because I did it better. "Where are you going?" she called after me, panic clear in her voice. "To pack," I answered without turning around. "I have a plane to catch tomorrow morning." "But Dorothy, please, we can talk about this. I'll help with the cooking. Thomas will help. Please don't do this to us." I stopped at the bottom of the stairs and turned to look at her one last time. She looked small suddenly, despite her expensive clothes and perfect hair. Small and lost and completely unprepared for the reality she was about to face. "Rebecca," I said quietly, "I'm not doing anything to you. I'm finally doing something for myself. There's a difference." I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, leaving her standing in the kitchen. As I closed my door, I could hear her on the phone, her voice high and frantic as she called Thomas. "Your sister has lost her mind. She says she's leaving tomorrow. She says she won't help with Christmas. Thomas, what are we going to do?" "What you're going to do," I thought with grim satisfaction, "is learn what it actually takes to be a host. What it costs in time, money, energy, and effort. What it feels like to be taken for granted." But what Rebecca didn't know, what neither she nor Thomas knew, was that my decision to leave wasn't spontaneous. I had been planning this for months, and I had my reasons. Reasons that would soon leave them both speechless. Reasons that would expose truths they had worked very hard to keep hidden. Because 6 months ago, while cleaning Thomas's home office at Rebecca's request, another task she'd assigned me without asking, I had found something. Something that changed everything I thought I knew about my brother's marriage, about Rebecca's true character, and about the real reason they had been so eager to keep me close, compliant, and useful. That night, I lay in my bed listening to the muffled sounds of arguing from downstairs. Thomas had arrived home, and Rebecca was giving him a dramatic retelling of our confrontation. Her voice rose and fell in waves of indignation and tears, painting herself as the victim of her cruel, unreasonable sister-in-law who had heartlessly abandoned her in her hour of need. I didn't go downstairs to defend myself. I didn't explain or justify my decision. I simply lay there, staring at my ceiling, and remembered the day 6 months ago when everything had changed. It had been a Tuesday in June, unseasonably hot, and Rebecca had called me at 8 in the morning. "Dorothy, I need a huge favor. Thomas's office is a disaster, and he has important clients coming to the house tomorrow. Could you possibly help me organize it? I'd do it myself, but I have that charity luncheon, and you know how important my committee work is." Her charity work, the committee position she'd secured through connections, where she attended monthly luncheons and took credit for fundraising events that other people organized. But I had agreed, as I always did, because refusing would mean listening to Thomas guilt-trip me about supporting family, and Rebecca's wounded sighs about how she tried so hard to make everyone happy. Thomas's home office was indeed a disaster. Papers covered every surface, files overflowed from drawers, and his desk looked like the epicenter of a document explosion. I had spent 4 hours sorting, organizing, filing, turning his chaos into order because that's what I did. I fixed other people's messes. I was nearly finished, working on the last drawer of his filing cabinet, when I found a folder marked Personal Confidential. Something about the way it was shoved in the very back of the drawer, hidden behind tax documents from years ago, made me pause. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that. Privacy was privacy, and these were my brother's personal documents. But something in my gut, call it intuition, call it the universe's way of revealing truth, made me open that folder. Inside was a life insurance policy, a $2 million life insurance policy, on my life. with Rebecca listed as the primary beneficiary. I sat down hard in Thomas's office chair, the paper trembling in my hands as I read it again and again, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The policy had been taken out 3 years ago, shortly after our Aunt Marjorie died and left me her lakeside estate. This house, the one Rebecca treated as her personal property. But it wasn't just the life insurance policy. As I dug deeper into that folder, I found more documents. A consultation request with a lawyer about establishing power of attorney over an aging family member experiencing cognitive decline. That aging family member was me. I was 59 at the time, in perfect health, with no signs of cognitive anything. There was a printout of information about memory care facilities. Notes in Rebecca's handwriting about symptoms to document, forgetfulness, confusion, repetitive behaviors. A timeline suggesting that, by age 65 at the latest, guardianship should be established. At the very bottom of the folder was a document that made my blood run cold. It was a real estate assessment of my property, estimating its value at $3.2 million, with a note paper clipped to it in Rebecca's looping script. Once Dee is placed in care, immediate sale recommended. Property value currently at peak. They weren't just using me as free labor. They were planning to have me declared incompetent, strip me of my autonomy, sell my home, and presumably pocket the money from both the life insurance policy and the property sale. I sat in that office for 2 hours, photographing every document with my phone, my hands shaking so badly I had to retake several pictures. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, finished organizing the office, and went home in a daze. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of the house they planned to steal from me, and made my own plans. First, I hired my own lawyer, Richard Morrison, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s who specialized in elder law and family exploitation. When I showed him the photographs, his expression darkened. "Mrs. Dorothy," he said quietly, "what you've uncovered is evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud and potentially elder abuse. The fact that they're documenting supposed symptoms before you've exhibited any is particularly damning. They're creating a false narrative in advance." "Can they actually succeed?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Can they really have me declared incompetent and take everything?" "If they're patient and methodical enough, yes," he admitted, "especially if they can get cooperative doctors to support their claims. It's rare, but it happens. Family members slowly isolate the victim, document false symptoms, and by the time the victim realizes what's happening, they've already been labeled as unreliable or confused." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "But here's what they don't know. You've discovered their plan early. That gives you power. That gives you time to protect yourself." Over the next 6 months, Richard and I had quietly built a fortress around my assets and my autonomy. We did the following. First, we had me thoroughly evaluated by 3 independent physicians, all of whom documented my perfect cognitive health, my excellent memory, and my complete mental competency. These evaluations were notarized and filed with both my lawyer and my bank. Second, we restructured ownership of my property through an irrevocable trust that prevented anyone from forcing a sale, even if I were somehow declared incompetent. The trust named my childhood friend, Patricia, as trustee, someone who lived across the country and whom Thomas and Rebecca had never met. Third, we canceled the life insurance policy, or rather, we discovered it had been fraudulently obtained. I had never signed the application. My signature had been forged. Richard reported this to both the insurance company and the police. There was now an open investigation into insurance fraud, though Rebecca and Thomas didn't know that yet. Fourth, and most importantly, we installed hidden security cameras throughout my house. Every room except the bathrooms had tiny, virtually invisible cameras that recorded everything. Every conversation, every interaction, every moment of the life Rebecca and Thomas thought they were controlling. For 6 months, I had played the role of compliant, helpful Dorothy while those cameras captured Rebecca's true nature. Her screaming at me when her friends weren't around, her taking money from my purse, her coaching Thomas on how to document my supposed forgetfulness. Her on the phone with her sister, laughing about how the old bat does whatever I tell her, and how, in a few years, we'll have her in a home, and this place will be ours. The cameras had captured Thomas, my own brother, discussing with Rebecca how to speed things along by adding small amounts of sedatives to my evening tea to make me seem confused and sleepy. They'd captured him on the phone with a corrupt doctor friend, asking about the process for declaring someone incompetent. All of it was documented, all of it was saved on secure servers, all of it was evidence. Now, lying in my bed and listening to Rebecca cry and Thomas pace downstairs, I smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow, I would leave for my vacation. But I wouldn't be going far. I'd be staying at Patricia's cabin, just 40 minutes away, where I would have a front-row seat to the unraveling of Rebecca's perfect plans. Because Rebecca's family wasn't really coming for a month-long Christmas celebration. That was true. But what Rebecca didn't know was that I had reached out to several of her family members, specifically her mother, her older sister Catherine, and her uncle Raymond, and shared with them some very interesting information about Rebecca's financial situation and her plans for her generous sister-in-law. Rebecca had been telling her family for years that she and Thomas were wealthy, successful, and that they owned this magnificent lakeside estate. She'd been borrowing money from her relatives under false pretenses, using me and my property as proof of her prosperity. Her family was indeed coming for Christmas, but they weren't coming to celebrate. They were coming to collect on debts, to confront Rebecca about her lies, and to finally see the truth about the life she'd been living at my expense. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Catherine, Rebecca's older sister. "Dorothy, we arrive tomorrow at 2 p.m. Rebecca still has no idea we've been talking. This is going to be quite the family reunion. Thank you for your courage in exposing the truth." I texted back, "Thank you for believing me. See you soon." Then I turned off my phone, pulled my covers up to my chin, and slept soundly for the first time in 5 years. Tomorrow, the real show would begin. I woke at 5 a.m. to the sound of frantic footsteps in the hallway outside my room. Rebecca was already awake, panic-packing by the sound of it, her heels clicking back and forth between rooms like a metronome counting down to disaster. I took my time getting ready. I showered leisurely, dressed in comfortable traveling clothes, and carefully applied my makeup. I wanted to look refreshed, healthy, and completely competent. The opposite of the confused, declining old woman they'd been trying to paint me as. My suitcases were already packed, hidden in my closet since yesterday. I'd learned to be strategic about my preparations, to keep my plans invisible until the moment of execution. At 6:30, I carried my bags downstairs. Thomas was in the kitchen, unshaven and exhausted, staring at his coffee as if it held answers to unsolvable questions. Rebecca was on the phone in the living room, her voice shrill and desperate as she tried to find a catering company that could handle a month-long booking on 2 days' notice. "No, you don't understand," she was saying. "It's an emergency. I'll pay whatever you want. Triple your normal rate. Just please, please tell me you can do this." Thomas looked up when I entered the kitchen. "Mom's actually doing this," he said, his voice flat. "She's actually leaving." "Her name is Dorothy," I corrected coldly, "and yes, I'm actually leaving. Did you think I wouldn't?" He ran a hand through his hair, the same gesture he'd used since childhood when he was caught doing something wrong. "Dot, come on. This is insane. Rebecca is losing her mind. Her entire family will be here in less than 2 days." "That sounds like a Rebecca problem," I replied, pouring myself coffee from the pot he'd made. "And a Thomas problem, but it's definitely not a Dorothy problem." "But it's Christmas," he protested, his voice rising. You can't just abandon family at Christmas. I set my coffee cup down with more force than necessary. Family? Is that what you call taking out a fraudulent life insurance policy on me? Is that what you call planning to have me declared incompetent so you can steal my house? Is that family, Thomas? The color drained from his face. His mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. In the living room, Rebecca's phone conversation had stopped abruptly. You know about that, Thomas finally whispered. I know everything, I said calmly. The insurance fraud, the fake medical consultations, the plan to sell my property, the sedatives you were putting in my tea, everything. Rebecca appeared in the kitchen doorway, her phone clutched in her white-knuckled hand, her face a mask of trapped panic. Dorothy, I can explain. I'm sure you can, I interrupted. You're very good at explaining things, very good at lying, manipulating, and scheming. But here's what you're not good at, Rebecca, getting away with it. It wasn't like that, she started, but I held up my hand. Save it. I've heard 6 months' worth of your real thoughts, thanks to the security cameras I installed throughout this house. I watched with satisfaction as the implications hit them both. Every conversation, every plan, every cruel comment you thought was private, all recorded, all saved, all shared with my lawyer. Thomas slumped into a kitchen chair. Oh, God, Dot, I don't want to hear it, I said sharply. Both of you used me. Both of you planned to rob me of everything, my property, my freedom, eventually my life. And you did it while making me feel guilty for not doing more to help you. Rebecca's face transformed from panic to cold calculation in an instant. You can't prove any of that would hold up in court. We never actually did anything. It was just talk, just contingency planning. Insurance fraud is not contingency planning, I said. Forging my signature is a crime. Drugging someone without their knowledge is assault. And I have 6 months of recorded evidence of you both discussing and attempting all of it. The doorbell rang, startling all 3 of us. Thomas and Rebecca exchanged confused glances. Who could that be at this hour? Rebecca asked, her voice small. That, I said, picking up my coffee cup with a steady hand, would be my lawyer, the police detective investigating your insurance fraud, and representatives from Adult Protective Services. They're here to formally interview you both and serve you with restraining orders. Restraining orders? Thomas's voice cracked. Dot, please, you can't. I already did. Neither of you are allowed within 500 feet of me or my property. You have until noon today to remove any belongings you've left here over the years. After that, anything remaining becomes my property. Rebecca's legs seemed to give out, and she sank onto the living room sofa, her perfect facade completely shattered. But my family is coming here. They're supposed to arrive tomorrow. I told them. I know exactly what you told them, I said. You told them you and Thomas owned this estate. You told them you were wealthy and successful. You borrowed money from them using my property as false collateral. Funny thing is, I've been in contact with your mother, your sister Catherine, and your uncle Raymond for the past 3 months. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with horror. You didn't. I did. I told them the truth about everything, about how you've been living, about the lies you've told, about the debts you've accumulated. Your family is indeed coming tomorrow, Rebecca. But they're not coming to celebrate. They're coming to confront you. The doorbell rang again, more insistently this time. I walked calmly to answer it, leaving Thomas and Rebecca frozen in their respective positions, their perfect scheme crumbling around them like a house of cards in a windstorm. I opened the door to find Richard Morrison, my lawyer, standing next to Detective Sarah Chen and 2 representatives from Adult Protective Services. Behind them were 2 uniformed police officers. Good morning, Dorothy, Richard said warmly. Are you ready? More than ready, I replied, stepping aside to let them enter. They're in the kitchen and living room. Shall I introduce you? As the officials filed into my house, I picked up my suitcases and carried them to my car. The morning air was crisp and clean, and for the first time in 5 years, I felt like I could breathe fully. Patricia was waiting for me at her cabin, where I would spend the next month in peace. From there, I would watch the dominoes fall, watch Rebecca's family discover her lies, watch Thomas face the consequences of his betrayal, watch the investigation into their schemes unfold. But most importantly, I would finally rest, in my own time, on my own terms, with my autonomy and dignity intact. As I started my car and pulled out of the driveway, I glanced in my rearview mirror. Through the front windows, I could see Detective Chen talking to Thomas, who had his head in his hands. Rebecca was gesturing frantically, already spinning whatever story she thought might save her. But there would be no saving them, not from this, not from the truth. I smiled and turned up the radio, heading toward my real Christmas, one filled with peace, freedom, and the sweet taste of justice served cold. The show was just beginning, and I had the best seat in the house. The drive to Patricia's cabin was only 40 minutes, but it felt like a journey to another world. With each mile I put between myself and that house, I felt layers of tension peeling away. The tightness in my shoulders eased, the knot in my stomach loosened. By the time I pulled into Patricia's driveway, I felt almost light. Patricia met me at the door, her silver hair catching the morning sunlight, her warm smile exactly what I needed. We'd been friends since we were 12 years old, over 50 years of knowing each other's secrets, supporting each other's struggles, celebrating each other's victories. "Welcome to freedom," she said, pulling me into a tight hug. Inside her cozy cabin, she already had coffee brewing and fresh cinnamon rolls warming in the oven. We settled into her living room, surrounded by windows that looked out over a pristine lake, and she pulled out her laptop. "All right," she said, "all business now. Walk me through everything one more time. I want to make sure we haven't missed anything." For the next 2 hours, we reviewed my 6 months of preparation in detail. Patricia had been my partner in this from the beginning, the one person I trusted absolutely, the one person Rebecca and Thomas didn't even know existed in my life. "The security footage is all backed up on 3 separate servers," I confirmed. "One is with Richard's law firm, one is with a private security company, and one is in a safety deposit box at my bank." "And the financial documentation?" "Everything is documented. Every dollar Rebecca stole from my purse, and there were dozens of incidents. Every grocery bill I paid for her dinner parties, every time she used my credit card without permission. 5 years of financial abuse, all itemized." Patricia pulled up a spreadsheet on her laptop. "According to my calculations, you've spent approximately $87,000 on Rebecca's entertainment, meals, and personal expenses over the past 5 years. That's not counting the value of your labor, which if we calculate at a professional housekeeper's rate, plus private chef rates, plus event planning rates." She scrolled down, and I saw the number at the bottom, $312,000. "They owe you over $300,000, Patricia said quietly, "and that's a conservative estimate." I stared at the number, feeling a mixture of vindication and sadness. $300,000 worth of my time, energy, and resources. Stolen, taken for granted, expected as my duty. My phone buzzed with a message from Richard. "Interview with police going well. They're cooperating, or rather, they're trying to minimize. Detective Chen is experienced with these cases. She's not buying their 'it was just talk' defense. We'll update you this evening." "The insurance fraud alone is a serious crime," Patricia said, reading over my shoulder. "But combined with the forgery, the attempted drugging, the conspiracy to commit guardianship fraud, Dorothy, they're looking at real prison time." "Thomas is my brother," I said, my voice catching slightly. "I never thought he would—" "He made his choices," Patricia said firmly. "He chose his wife over his sister. He chose money over family. He chose to participate in a scheme to steal your life from you. Those were his choices, Dorothy, not yours." She was right, of course, but it still hurt. Losing Rebecca's false friendship was no loss at all. I'd never had her genuine regard. but losing Thomas, my baby brother whom I'd helped raise after our parents died, whom I'd supported through college, whom I'd loved unconditionally, that was a wound that would take time to heal. "Tell me about Rebecca's family," Patricia said, changing the subject to something more productive. "When exactly do they arrive?" I pulled up my own spreadsheet. Yes, I'd made a spreadsheet I'd learned from the best, and reviewed the details. Catherine, Rebecca's older sister, arrives at 2 o'clock tomorrow with her husband and 3 teenagers. She's a forensic accountant, by the way. Very excited to examine Rebecca's creative bookkeeping. Patricia grinned. "I like her already." Rebecca's mother, Linda, arrives at 4 o'clock tomorrow. She's apparently furious. Rebecca borrowed $30,000 from her 2 years ago, claiming she needed it for Thomas's business expansion. Linda just discovered there was never any business expansion. Ouch. Rebecca's uncle Raymond arrives tomorrow evening with his new wife, Diane. Raymond is a retired FBI agent. When I contacted him 3 months ago and explained the situation, an FBI agent in the family? Patricia's eyebrows rose. Rebecca really picked the wrong person to scam. Then there's Valeria, her younger sister, arriving the day after tomorrow. Valeria is a family therapist who specializes in narcissistic personality disorders. She's apparently been worried about Rebecca for years, but could never get close enough to see the truth. "This is beautiful," Patricia said. "You didn't just expose Rebecca. You assembled a team of experts to confront her." "The rest of the family is a mix," I continued. "Some are victims of Rebecca's borrowing schemes. Some are just curious about why the family matriarch contacted them with concerns. Some, I think, have suspected Rebecca's true nature for years and are relieved someone finally called her out." "And they're all expecting to stay at your house for a month?" That was Rebecca's plan. She told them all they'd be staying at the family estate, meaning my house. She promised them a luxury Christmas vacation, 5-star meals, beautiful accommodations, holiday activities. All provided by me, of course, though she neglected to mention that part. So what happens when 30 people show up expecting a resort experience and find Rebecca and Thomas in a house they no longer have access to? I smiled. That's where it gets interesting. I've rented a large conference room at the Lakeside Inn for tomorrow afternoon. I've invited all of Rebecca's family members to meet me there at 5 o'clock, after they've had a chance to arrive and discover the reality of the situation. You're going to face them all at once? With Richard present, yes. And Catherine has agreed to present a financial accounting of Rebecca's fraud. And Raymond is bringing documentation of the criminal investigation. It's not going to be a Christmas party, Patricia. It's going to be a family intervention. My phone rang. It was Detective Chen. "Ms. Dorothy, I wanted to update you personally," she said. "We've concluded our initial interviews with Rebecca and Thomas Hartwell. Based on the evidence you've provided, we'll be recommending charges of insurance fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit guardianship fraud." "What does that mean exactly?" "It means they'll likely be arrested and arraigned within the next few days. The district attorney will review the case, but given the extensive documentation you've provided, I'd say there's a very strong case here." "And the house? They can't try to claim any ownership?" "Absolutely not. Your lawyer has provided clear documentation that the property is yours alone, held in an irrevocable trust. Even if they tried to sue, which would be laughable given the circumstances, they have no legal standing." After the call ended, I sat back in Patricia's comfortable armchair and let out a long breath. "It's really happening," I said. "After 5 years of abuse, it's really ending." "It's really ending," Patricia confirmed. "Now let's plan your actual Christmas, the one you deserve." We spent the rest of the afternoon doing exactly that, planning quiet mornings with coffee and books, long walks around the lake, movie marathons in our pajamas, absolutely no cooking for ungrateful people, absolutely no cleaning up after anyone else's messes, just peace, rest, and friendship. That evening, my